A furious row has broken out on GBNews over an NHS course which asks whether a patient's potential interest in, quote, extreme right-wing politics is a cause for concern. Former Reform UK strategist Gawain Towler furiously lashed out at the health body's safeguarding question, asking why it is always the right that is made an example of. But GBNews political commentator Nigel Nelson contested the point, suggesting that such an interest is worth flagging. The issue was first raised by Towler on X, formerly known as Twitter, with a tweet saying, "A friend is doing an admin course for the NHS. This is one of the questions. Clearly the right answer is the last one, but the one if you want to get or keep a job might be a different one. Is it right that clerical assistants should be used as political commissars?" The question gives the user a scenario where a couple have just had a baby and are being visited by the community midwife. The midwife notices, quote, what looks like an extreme right-wing political organisation membership on the coffee table with some of the group's promotional pamphlets. As part of the test, the user is then asked whether the matter should be considered a safeguarding risk. The correct answer is then presented as yes. Seek more information or speak to your line manager or organisational safeguarding team before deciding if there are any safeguarding risks. An NHS England spokesperson told GB News, "This is important training as part of the government's statutory prevent duty, aimed at preventing terrorism and safeguarding those susceptible to radicalisation." Both Towler and Nelson presented their arguments on Nigel Farage's show on GB News, presented that evening by Martin Daubney.
Gawain, you unearthed this. Talk viewers through what the questions say and what you think is the correct answer they want to hear.
Well, I think it is a scenario. It's a make-weight scenario. It's one of these online training documents, modules where you tick a box and then do a training. It takes you 20 minutes and tick all any questions. But it becomes very clear with this question, it must be something to do through the Prevent programme.
It is.
And it is not just the NHS, it is across the public sector. So it says
if you see a membership card of a far-right political organisation in the home...
If a midwife goes there and is checking out the health of the child, they also should be checking out the political health of the family. And that, I think, is deeply concerning. It doesn't matter. Why? Look, I hold no candle for the far right or the far left. And I wouldn't care if it was somebody from Hope Not Hate or Antifa. If they're looking after the child, that's all that matters for a midwife. And so it should be. Are we saying that somebody from a political perspective, not mine or somebody else's, should not receive equal treatment by the NHS?
It doesn't say that. I mean,
but why would they be flagging it? I'll give you an example. In 2016, during the referendum, a schoolboy was seen twice to research UKIP on his school computer. Prevent were called. He was interviewed by the police as a possible radicalisation threat.
Well, why don't we stick to this question?
Yeah.
The training that people involved in safeguarding or prevent get is to report any kind of extremism they come across. So this would equally apply if they found a Communist Party membership card on the table.
But it doesn't ask that question. It's always the right.
Because this is purely a generic question,
yes,
and they're using
all in the same direction.
And what they're using is an easily understood scenario to say, right, what do you do next? It doesn't mean they take the baby away. It doesn't mean those parents are unfit. What it means is that under the safeguarding rules,
you should report them. Dress them up.
You should report it up. I mean, obviously, if you found a Tory membership card there and you then reported that, someone would say, "Don't be silly."
But
if you find one from the Ku Klux Klan,
do you not remember?
You might then say, "Well, hang on, perhaps we'll look at this again."
But isn't that the point? What is far right? For example, if they saw you're a member,
it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
It does matter
because if the midwife decides that reform is far right, they're going to encourage the midwife to grass the parents up.
They're not being grassed up. All you're doing is passing it further up.
2014, a couple who had been foster parents.
Don't go back into history.
No.
Stick
I'm
to
talking
this
about
particular.
evidence. You're saying this doesn't matter.
No. What I'm saying is that
but it does matter. Children would take Rotherham Social Services removed foster children from a foster family because they were UKIP members. Meanwhile,
I know
they were
going
ignoring
back onto history.
Rape.
I'm talking about this questionnaire, and that was the right answer.
But this is indicative of The right answer was clearly report up.
No, well, it was the right answer. Yes, you should.
The right answer is none of my damn business.
It is your business. You accept on your Twitter feed that if they'd found some evidence of a religious problem to do with female genital mutilation, you would report that upstairs.
Yes, FGM. Yes.
Yes. Well, that's the point.
Because that's illegal.
No, but tell me what far-right organisation has, as part of its way of being, mistreating children.
We're not trying to compare the two things.
It doesn't mean we have evidence that children were removed from UKIP supporting foster parents.
You're going back over history.
But that's where it comes from.
We're talking about this questionnaire.
Hard evidence.
And is the right thing to do?
This is how prevent is used.
Safeguarding is so important.
Safeguarding is important.
Is the right thing to do if there is a suspicion?
If the child is healthy, why do you care about the politics of the parents?
It doesn't mean that the child will be taken away. What it means is...
Why is it the business of the NHS to know the politics of the parents?
Because as safeguarding or prevent...
Why does safeguarding have a blind...
If you see extremism of any sort, what you then do is you ask for advice.
But they're not asking for extremism of any sort. They're saying, are they far right? They wouldn't say, are they radical Islam?
That's an indicative question. It could have been...
Are they far right?
It never is. It's always the right.
It could have been communist. It could have been a member of the Communist Party.
Why would I care about the communists? They look after their babies
if
too.
you're asking a simple indicative question, much easier to use the far right, who've been responsible for violence recently, who've been responsible for violence recently, whereas the Communist Party hasn't.
According to MI6, 75% of all threats are Islamic, not far right.
Yeah.
So why not be indicative about Islam?
It would apply to any Islamist literature.
But it would never say that. That's the point.
Say that.
But if you just have an indicative question...
The NHS, Nigel, you know damn sure as would never say, if you spotted signs of radical Islam in a household, would you report it?
But that is covered as well. I mean, you could turn around and say that, in fact, this question is actually saying people called Thomas and Jenny are more likely to be child abusers because they're named in the question.
But no, hold on.
Okay, gentlemen, we have the call time.
Reaction to the debate on social media was mixed. One Twitter user commented, "Watching this literally made my blood pressure go through the roof. Sick to death of the interference. It's got nothing to do with illness or midwives what my political leaning is." Another said, "When I worked in the NHS, there was always a laughable consensus that you should always pick the most left-wing woke answer to online training questions." However, some weren't so sure, with one user commenting, "Well said, Nigel Nelson. Gawain Towler and Daubney are clearly far right." In response to the segment, Towler posted on X pointing to a case from 2012, in which a couple had 3 foster children removed from their care due to their association to the UK Independence Party, also known as UKIP. He said, "Sad to say, this is serious. Children have been taken away from parents for perception, not of care, but of political beliefs." It comes as the Prime Minister prepares to announce his plan for change for the NHS on Thursday, with a key focus on meeting the long-standing target of completing 92% of operations within 18 weeks. However, NHS officials have warned that meeting this target could turn A&E services into war zones and impact mental health treatment delivery. The NHS has recently received a £22 billion funding boost for day-to-day spending as part of Labour's first budget, which raised £40 billion in tax. Despite record-high spending levels and increased staffing since the pandemic, NHS productivity remains below 2019 levels. The health service is now facing pressure to deliver improvements alongside the substantial funding increase. So, should the NHS have a say in how people raise their children? Let us know what you think down below and subscribe for more content like this from GB News.